Welcome to Out of My Mouth, the program where raw thoughts meet unfiltered conversations.
Join us as we dive into the depths of human experience, where we share stories, perspectives, and insights that just might challenge the status quo.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and ponder the world around you like never before. This is Out of My Mouth.
The views and opinions of our guest and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of New Thought Media Network, or any organization we may be affiliated with. Here at New Thought Media Network, we welcome freedom of speech and courageous conversations. There are many topics that can be difficult to navigate. Challenging the status quo and engaging in lively debate is important to expanding our understanding of one another, and life in general. Creating a peaceful world doesn't happen because no one disagrees, it happens from a willingness to understanding one another. In our programming, we strive to expand consciousness and assist people in creating remarkable lives. Your comments are welcome at info@ntmedia.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to Out of My Mouth. I'm Barbara Jean.
And I'm Marg Dupuis.
And
welcome.
Welcome. Well, let us begin with the land acknowledgement. As we gather today, we acknowledge that we are standing on historical and sacred ground. It is home to many diverse First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island. May we walk alongside our Indigenous family, recognizing our shared stewardship of this earth. Let us carry forward the spirit of unity, understanding, and resilience that we've been reminded of through our reflections. Let us hold in our hearts the intention to learn, to support, and to advocate for justice and sovereignty for us all. In doing so, we acknowledge our interconnectedness and the strength that comes from standing together in truth, respect, and love. May this intention guide us in our actions and thoughts, inspiring us to contribute to a world where the dignity and rights of all are honored. Let us be mindful of the role we play in this ongoing journey towards healing and unity. By making this acknowledgement, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation by honoring the land, the history, as well as the unique heritage and culture of the Indigenous peoples. This fosters our commitment to create a world that works for the highest and best good of all life. Please take a moment to acknowledge your personal commitment to the land that you are on and the path you choose to walk going forward. Miigwech.
Thank you, Barbara. I love the words and the message behind the land acknowledgement. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome back Dr. Laura Quirk, friend, bestie extraordinaire. Laura is a full-time professor at the Conestoga College. She has been teaching at the university level since 1996. She has an undergraduate degree in archaeology, a master's in anthropology, a master's in history, and a PhD in history with a minor in archaeology. Before she was a professor, she was on a disability pension for 17 years due to MS, multiple sclerosis. And it was during that time that she managed to get her degrees. And before that, she had her first career. She owned an art gallery. Welcome, my friend, Laura.
Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much. It always sounds so funny to hear all of that. So thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back. And it's very wonderful. Thank you for inviting me again.
Well, and we're just really excited about this course that you just completed teaching, Why Normal Sucks. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was here at first, I had only had, I think, 2 classes the first time I was here, and then maybe I think I was here 2 or 3 weeks later. So it wasn't too far into the course, but I was excited about it then. But wow, 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 wow. The things that came out of that course just blew my mind. And while I love teaching anyway, this was by far the most meaningful and an incredible teaching experience I've ever had. One of the reasons it's fascinating, really, that sounds sort of funny, but in the world we live in, I'm on Zoom and students just don't show up. And it was a night class, and it's especially, night classes, students just don't show up. And I had 44 students in the end, and the lowest number of students that ever showed up was 28. And that was simply the week that we had somebody who came to talk about addictions. And so for some people, they don't think about addictions as being a disability, but clearly this person did. They not only had addictions, and then they suffered physical consequences of that. And so definitely had disabilities, but also, really, if we look at how we might define disability, it's hard to say that an addiction is not a disability. So anyway, and then otherwise I'd have like 38, 41, 42 students. And my other faculty would be saying, we had a class of 40 and 6 showed up. And I'm like, that's really too bad, because I just couldn't believe that it just didn't peter out even. I thought maybe it was a big hurrah at the beginning and it would peter out, but it didn't. And while I'm going, well, what's valuable about that is the students were there, they were engaged, they were present. And I mean, good Lord, one class. So my class normally went from 6 till 7:30 typically, but we had a 3-hour window if we wanted to. And how I structured the class was I did a voiceover PowerPoint that students had to watch first and do it in their own time, and then they'd come to class and we'd have sort of a seminar, if you will, and they would hear people's stories and whatnot. And there's one class, so it starts at 6. At 9:30, I still had 36 students there. And I finally had to say, I'm sorry, but I have to end this class. I teach tomorrow at 8:00 in the morning. I'm too tired. Like, I'm so sorry, but I have. And they just didn't want to leave. And
Wow.
what was so interesting was just how engaged they were, and how they told me stories, and how it just became a place that was incredible for all of us. I mean, blew my mind, the things that they said to me. And so I just thought it might be interesting to share some of that. Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Yes.
And can I just you introduced this program, correct?
Yes.
Because it spoke to your heart and soul, and you introduced this, and so it was kind of a pilot program. I don't know if that's what you call it in the university lingo, but it was like a pilot program, and I think it may be successful and continue on. And
Yeah, you're absolutely right here. So initially, this disability minor, for which this new course, Why Normal Sucks, was the first course. And I was told, look, this is just, we'll see if it works, if anybody wants to take it. And somebody did say to me, well, who would want to take this course? Nobody's going to want to take this course. And I just kept saying, trust me, I think they will. And they wanted it to be something else. And I just kept saying, no, it needs to be this. It needs to be a disability minor. Anyway, so yes, and you're right, Mark. Not only did it feel successful to me because of the numbers, and I thought my bosses would be pretty happy with that, but unbeknownst to me, it turned out, I think 4, I don't know if it's more than 4, but certainly 4 students contacted my boss, unbeknownst to me, to say this course needs to continue, this program needs to continue. And, that was just thrilling to me. And since the course is over, what's been really fascinating is, so only 6 programs were offered this course. We have lots of programs at the college at the degree level. Another program I let come in, which is typically our class numbers are supposed to stop at 40. I let another 5 in because it was from an outside program. But in any case, so not very many programs were offered it. And since the class is over, I have been approached by 3 different programs saying, you know what, we think we need to make this as part of the required program. So the third one was just last week. And so it's like, are you kidding? So as of 2025, some programs are now talking about making it a required element in their programs. And, you know, one of them is nursing. Hello, that makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
But the other one that really surprised me was the early learning students. Now, I had 6 of those in the class, and they were totally into my course, but they ended up going to their chair and saying, this course should be part of our program. And after investigating it, I met with them. They've agreed that they're going to do that moving forward. So, I mean, it's just beyond my imaginations. And anyhow, about halfway through the class, my boss in another meeting said, yeah, I think maybe we've decided that this can move ahead. This was a success. And I was like, okay, cool. That was nice to hear. And actually what was really funny was he told me he was going to come to visit my class, and it just, the day he was coming was reading week. So that wasn't going to happen. So I just didn't know he was coming. And at the end of one of my classes, I had a student say, Laura, there was a person named X, and Adam is my boss's name. And Adam, he's not in our class. What was he doing here? Do you know him? And I was like, wow, he hadn't identified himself. He wasn't on camera. I didn't see him. And I didn't even look for his name. And he later said, yeah, it was a good class. We'll talk later, you know, and we haven't talked about it. But I mean, it's just obviously hit a nerve. And so, yeah, I'm really excited that it's becoming bigger really fast. So, yeah.
And when can we expect the book?
Do you know what? You're not the first person to ask me that. And I mean, I've always thought I would maybe write my story bigger than the Hope Project, which is just one little element of my life. And this would certainly be a big chapter or 2 or 3. But I just kind of think, I guess I'll know when it's time. It's not over yet. So I'm not really sure how much of my story I'm quite ready to, I don't know. But anyway, this would be prominent. And it certainly blew my mind. So, and I do want to say, by the way, before I say anything else, that this course is not just my doing. There's a team of us, and specifically my colleague named Kate. She's the person who helped me. We developed the program. We developed the course outline. She is actually doing the second course, positive psychology. She's the one doing it. She helped me with normal sex, and I'm helping her with positive psychology. But she's the expert there. I was the expert here, and so. Anyway, long story short, like but it's not just Kate either. It's people in the curriculum. It's my boss. It's other faculty. Like this has been a labor of love from more than just me. And so and my students, I mean, my students coming on board, it just feels like it's a much bigger thing than me. So that's what's really exciting about it.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, it really is.
If you had a moment to describe through the whole term, is there anything that really stood out for you? I know that's really difficult question.
You know, there were many such moments, Marg, and I suppose, oh wow, well, I already shared this story with you the last time, but after I shared my story about MS the one night, the one student stayed after and told me that she had tried to commit suicide 2 weeks previously, and this was the first time she felt hope after listening to my story. And so that blew my mind. But there were many times the students reduced me to tears, staying afterwards to say things to me. One of the other perhaps profound ones for me really was I was talking to the students about what intersex is. I talked about, it was a class I had on sexuality and disability. And yes, people in a wheelchair might want to have sex, you know, and so this was almost shocking to my students because I think our culture says, look, if you're in a wheelchair, you're a non-sexual being. And so it was interesting to go there. And also in that class, I talked about what intersex is, which if you don't know, it is people who have the same, like they have perhaps a vagina and a penis, or testicles and a clitoris, or maybe they have even hormones, female hormones and male hormones that are extra or different in their body. And so their bodies are quite different in historically, at birth, when if this was evident, oftentimes a choice would be made: you will now be a boy, you will now be a girl, because they cut off the parts that were specifically usually cut off a penis. But since we seem to like boys sometimes as well, they would do surgeries to change it so that there was anyway. So I was talking about intersex, and I had a student private chat to me and say that nowhere in their life had they ever been taught about intersex, and they themselves were intersex, and this was the first time in their life they were coming out to somebody to tell them. And it was just really powerful and wonderful. And what was so interesting as well is, in my course, I didn't expect this, but students came out to me all the time about all kinds of things, about the things that they were hiding, not talking about, sexuality, gender, but many other things as well, diseases, addictions, etc. And in that same class, there was a number of my students who came out and said, look, and I'm part of the LGBT plus community, and I don't know anybody who's intersex. And it's part of our community, but I don't know anybody. And literally around the class are going, yeah, I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody. So then I said to the students, yeah, well, you know what's interesting about intersex? It's as common as somebody having red hair. So if you think about all the people that you know who have red hair, we obviously know a lot of people who are intersex, or at least have had interactions with them. So anyway, that was a really profound experience. And the student felt heard. They felt like, and that was the way they described it to me. They felt heard, they felt acknowledged, and that they felt that their life was being represented for the first time ever. And so, those are the kinds of moments, in answer to your question, Mark, that I had in this class, that just, what a privilege, what an honor. And I learned so much from them. It wasn't just me teaching them either. It was really a two-way street. And so there's many, many examples, but those are two of them, the most profound, I think. But I know I've told you our stories, so I don't know whether there's anything in particular you were thinking of when you asked me the question.
No, just general, because I know how profound it was for you, and I know there's perhaps an award happening down the road here, and Barbara doesn't know that, but I don't know if you want to speak to that, Laura, that you've been approached.
Okay, this might make me cry. This is a talk who knows if I'll cry. Yes, a very dear friend of mine a colleague has nominated me for the Teaching of the Year award, and it's based on this development of this course, and it's, and I have accepted the nomination because I think it's more than me. It's an acknowledgement about people's efforts far more than me, including my students. Like, I think they'll feel really good if it's acknowledged. And so I'm pretty excited just about, about that. So yeah, yes, an answer. I'm pretty emotional about it, because honestly, when she asked me, I was a little puzzled, because I yeah. And and she asked me for students' names who might be willing to share their thoughts, and she said within 5 minutes, all of the students that I suggested immediately said yes. And so I was just like, wow. Like, it's just, I'm gobsmacked, and I love that word. And at the same time, I'm just deeply moved that this is something I really, I know people say this, that you get nominated, and so it's just in the nomination, but it is. I've won just because this is something that's being acknowledged and appreciated, and it's deeply moving to me. If there's ever a time in my career that this is a thing, then this would be it. But at the same time, again, it's because it's not just about me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think what's so wonderful about this particular course is people use the word normal all the time. I just
do.
want to be normal. Why aren't you normal? What? And the thing is, normal actually doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
it's such a, so, when you first talked about why normal sucks, I'm like, yeah, you know, it's
Well,
such a bullshit statement.
yeah.
Normal.
Yeah.
We could switch it for mediocre. That's what normal is.
Well, and
It's
it's so much worse than that, Barbara Jean.
yeah,
It's so much worse than that because it's like, is it just, what's normal, what's average, but it's also what's abnormal. If you're not normal, then what's not normal? You are outside of the, society somehow. You are less. You are, and so it's that someone deciding who you are. And yeah, it's really funny at the beginning of the class. I'll never forget the students. I would be saying, "There's no such thing as normal." And I'd say, "Oh, yeah, Laura, I think there is. You just don't get it. There's normal here." I'm like, "Well, okay, I'm just going to keep saying it." And by the end of the class, they were like, "There's no such thing as normal." It's like, no, there isn't. Like it was really funny. And I mean, I did write down a few comments here that
yeah.
students were emailing me. They were sending me private messages in the chat, and I kept them not because I needed to have some kind of reassurance that life was good. But I thought if my boss ever says, this course just doesn't need to run, I wanted evidence. So, and I removed students' names. So it wasn't that, but it was just comments. And so, yeah, there was one thing that says, my student said this: "I will be the intern who will raise her voice in the boardroom and take a strong stance for the incorporation of accessibility because, Laura, normal does suck!" Exclamation marks. It was really, and I was just like, she's going to be standing up in the boardroom, and I'm like, right on, girlfriend, you go. It just anyway, one student said, "Disabilities can be such a taboo topic to discuss and oftentimes creates tension and fear of stepping on toes or the unconscious bias many of us carry towards those who are different than us. However, you've allowed a safe space to speak with professionals, advocates, and just with those with personal experience who are open to share their stories." And I mean, I thought, great. Speaking of which, I want to go to the next thing, which I think you will enjoy. This student said this: "The class truly meant a lot and resonated with my past. The class on pathologizing of normal, however, had the biggest and most profound impact on how I will go forward, as it showed a bright picture of the small ways in which we can take control of our own destinies. The story from that class was truly inspiring, and if there is any guest that needs to be brought back, it is Mark."
I love that.
I thought you might. It was just lovely and couldn't agree more. And that actually was another thing was really fun because in the end I had 7 speakers, including myself, for 14 classes. And then the others I did YouTube videos or TED Talks or something where I could have different sort of types of experience. But I had speakers on pathologizing of normal, like, having mental health issues. I had myself talking about MS. I had the person talking about addictions. I had Kate talking about positive psychology so that the students had another idea about how to look at the world. I had a friend of mine who's a veterinarian come in, and one of the things that he does is he talks about, in his world, he helps people who are homeless, who have AIDS, who have mental health issues with their animals. And so, it was interesting because the students found it fascinating. They couldn't believe I was having a vet come into my class. And they thought I meant a vet from like the war. And I was like, no, I mean like a veterinarian. And they were like, really? But when I started having him talk about it, and they were like, yes, oh my goodness, never thought about that. And is it okay if somebody who is homeless or has an addiction or has AIDS, should they be allowed to have a pet? I was like, of course, but it was fascinating. So there was that. And a friend of mine talked in our last class, really, he has Addison disease, and he has no stress hormone. And so he was trying to talk to the students about what it's like to guess how much stress hormone one needs in their life on a daily basis in order to survive. And it was a fascinating conversation where the students didn't even imagine that somebody could be without stress hormones. And so, and any other hormones for that matter. And so just there's all of these interesting ways that we looked at so many different. Oh, and I had a friend who's a historian, and she talked about the history of disability in Canada and how hard it's been to find those stories, because who gets to tell the history? It's by, for, and about white, usually Anglo-Saxon men. And so the people who are literate, who have the power. So if you have a poor child who has a disability, you're going to hide them away. You're not going to talk about it. You are going to make sure that no one knows about this child and or who's going to write about them. So it was an interesting journey for her as well. So anyway, just fascinating the way we looked at disability from all different angles. And the students just couldn't get over it. Anyway.
That's amazing. That's fabulous.
Right? It is so fabulous. And so one of the things I also wanted to introduce really in this conversation is we know this is Pride Month, and like I said, there was many students who talked about coming out and about, is this a disability or not? And it was a fascinating set of conversations, again, depending on how you decide what is and is not a disability, and how do we know. And it's just really, it was fascinating that the students, first of all, came out to me, and I didn't even know about things that they expressed. It was just, wow. I mean, I totally welcomed whatever they had to say, but lots of things were brand new to me in the ways that they looked at their own sexuality, their own gender, or their own experiences. And so, yeah, it was beautiful. And then, so for Pride Month, that seemed to me to be yet again the most wonderful thing. And you know, the students have always done this for me, but especially in this course, I feel so much hope for the future when you see the kinds of things the students are saying, and the things they're engaged in, things that are important to them. And this course just really emphasized that to me over and over again. These courageous and strong and present and lovely human beings. And I mean, something as simple as this. In the second class, when I talked, I said, look at everyone, when someone's coming to class, I need you to be on camera, because it's really, really hard to be sharing your story. And I said, let's just practice with me first. Every single student came on camera. And what was fascinating was, like, they never do that. And they did. I mean, I don't know if you remember that, Mark, but the students were on camera. You weren't talking to a sea of names. They were interacting and asking great questions, and like I said, staying after class sometimes, and it was just, anyway, fabulous. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but those were some of my highlights.
Well, I just love that, because I think that really speaks to something that is of utmost importance in our world right now, is the different levels of ability of each individual and who decides. This is excellent. Well, we're going to go on a brief little commercial break. You're watching Out of My Mouth on the New Thought Media Network. Our guest is Dr. Laura Quirk, and we are going to be back in just about 2 minutes. Don't go away.
People of African Descent New Thought Group proudly presents Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village, Thursday, August 1st through Sunday, August 4th. Some of our greatest keynote speakers, some of our finest musicians and vocalists, some of our amazing and experienced panelists, and some of our fabulous masterclass presenters will be there for you at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change at Unity Village this summer. Regular registration ends June 30th, so don't delay. Register today at padntg.com. Sponsorship opportunities are available at padntg.com. Volunteer opportunities are available at padntg.com. Go there now, padntg.com. See you there.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Welcome back to Out of My Mouth, where we're having just beautiful conversations that sometimes challenge the status quo. Love it.
I might stir the pot here because I'm going to bring up the word tolerance. Laura and I had a conversation about it yesterday, and I was saying how it really bothered me because I don't want to be tolerated, maybe put up with, but not tolerated. And Laura, you gave a really good example on how I could integrate into my awareness, I guess, how tolerance or tolerate could be tolerated. Okay. So did you want to speak to that?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the things that we talked about before I tell you my story about that is, for me, tolerance has always been about somebody saying, I'm above you, so I'm going to tolerate you. I'm going to, you're somehow less than me if you are doing something that I have to tolerate. And so I've always looked at it as quite negatively. But I have dear friends who are quite a bit older than me, not quite a bit, but older than me, and come from that mindset of saying, those gays, those gays. And I heard that a lot when I was quite young and from them. And I mean, I've known them since I was 16, and they became chosen parents to me. And so very close. And so when I was hearing those gays, I'd just be like, okay, not so much. And what was interesting, though, was they started meeting some of my friends and people that matter to me that are gay. And so they started, well, okay, we can put up with it because it's you, sort of attitude, and so there was this place of tolerance in the middle before they got to a place of embracing, in fact, difference and people who were gay. And so they went from those gays to, wonderful, and being very warm and loving. But that place in the middle was a place of tolerance, or at very least, they tolerated because they loved me. So therefore, I'm not like everybody else. So that was sort of, again, that sort of middle ground where they weren't too well, I can tolerate Laura and her friends and her people, but not everybody. But then they came to be totally warm and loving to everyone. And so it was really a fascinating journey. So yeah, Mark, when we talked about tolerance, it's that kind of tolerance, at least it's moving towards trying to be open, trying to find a way to be inviting. So yeah, in this case, I'm not a fan of tolerance as a concept, but to me, that's a way to look at it that I find moving into a place of, I don't even want to say acceptance, because if you're accepting me, it also means you're tolerating me, which means you've somehow, been above me. But let's just say you've come to embrace, in fact, not just say it's okay that you're that, but also, you know what? It's good that you're that. It's good that you're happy, good that you are X, whatever that is. And so, yeah. So that was my story that Mark was talking about.
Yeah, I like that. Because for me, the idea of being tolerated is quite offensive. And you're right, it is like a hierarchical thing, like a caste system. I'm here and you're there, so I'm better than you, but I'll tolerate you because I can't kill you, obviously, so I'll just put up with you. Yeah, I've always found that pretty offensive. And my husband took a picture of somebody on the subway the other day, and their T-shirt said, the people who tolerate me are heroes in my life. And I'm like, ew.
Not a fan. Wouldn't wear that T-shirt. Yeah.
I would never wear that T-shirt. But I think learning how to be curious about other people and to make space to hear, and that's what I love about your course, Why Normal Sucks, is it's a place where real conversations can happen and people of all different ways of being in the world can be explored and accepted, and even to create a sense of you're unique and special like everybody else.
And
Like if everybody
celebrated. Barbara,
and
it's
celebrated, yeah,
celebrated. It wasn't even just, we'll put up with you. It was a celebration. It was,
celebration,
and
yeah,
that's, yes, you're right. Actually, I did want to share a couple more quotes that I was looking at just
please.
over your break, because I think it speaks to some of what you just said. Thank you so much for creating this course. It is truly life-changing. Scream it from the rooftops. The change needs to be made. And
Yeah.
right on, scream away. I'll be screaming along with you. I just thought that was so great. And I loved this one. I learned from this class that it's not my fault that I have challenges. I should not be ashamed or embarrassed to have these struggles. I find myself becoming tearful as I write this because I feel as if a weight has been lifted. There is an entire class where students are learning that it's okay to be different.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, yeah, there is. And this class taught me a lot, but most importantly, to appreciate life, stand up for myself, and be strong and resilient. I mean, student after student, like in the very first class, when I asked them, like, why are you here? What do you hope to learn? We had this most incredible conversation. But I think one person said they had a disability, and a couple people said they knew people with disabilities, but that wasn't the reason they were there exactly. But as the class went on, more and more people shared all kinds of things. Actually, Marg, you asked me, there was another one that came to me in the break that was really, really powerful to me. And this was a student after I shared my story about MS, and they wrote me an email that night that just left me in a puddle of tears. And the student said that they had cystic fibrosis and that they had hidden that their whole life. They didn't want anyone to know that but they suddenly realized that they're not going to hide anymore. They're 20 years old and they're not going to hide anymore. That was what they took from my class. And they said, and from what I said, and they also said, if they were half the woman that I am, they'll be proud of themselves. And I was just like, I mean, honestly, I like, they just said things, and students do. They say things if they don't like it, but boy, they say it if they do like it too. But those kinds of experiences of them just telling me these things, thank you for creating this course. It has already been truly life-changing for me. And it's just like, what? Just really, like, and I do know, having been a student, that there's maybe a course or two that you remember the professor, or you remember the course, or you remember the material as being so powerful and meaningful. And I think together the students and I created that. I really do. They often said I created safe space. It's like, no, I didn't. We did it together, and it was brave space. Everybody was brave in what they said, and so yeah, it was really, really great. So those are there was more. There was many more. I have pages of comments the students gave me.
Wow.
But those were some of the highlights. Yeah.
And I love what you just said about we did it together, because really teaching or anything like that, it is a collaborative effort. The class will move according to, it's like you have an idea of what's going to be presented, but depending on the conversation, that shapes it and gives it life. And that's what makes it really, really land. So good for you. You should be the teacher of the year. That's
Not me, it was us. It wasn't just me. I mean, I wasn't going to bring that up, but Marg wanted to bring it up. But I am proud of it. I'm proud of it.
Of course.
Not,
No,
not, yeah.
I
you
was
said
thinking title.
Sorry.
I sorry, Barbara, you were
no, go ahead.
breaking
Go
up
ahead.
and didn't. I think my computer's being a little bit wonky. No comments, Laura. So your the title of your course, why normal sucks. You were saying that there were only a few who coming into the program identified as having a disability, and so I suspect the title was like, I wonder what the heck this is. This sounds kind of quirky. Maybe I'll come and investigate that. I know.
Quirky. Very, thank you very much. People like to tease me about my last name. Yes, I did have students in that first class say that it was the title that got them. But then when they read the description and they started thinking about it, they were like, "Oh yeah, I want to take this course." And I've had students say, "Well, I've told my friends about it, and I am quite convinced that we will have a full." I'm teaching it again this fall because now that it passed, yay! So now we're starting over so that the students in the fall can actually start to take the disability, because this is the first course, Why Normal Sucks. We're also offering the second course, and we're just going to roll it out and continue with the whole disability minor one semester after the other. And so my friend Kate is doing positive psych this fall as the second course in the disability minor. And, I'm just so proud of her and so excited to be doing it. She is going to knock the socks off the students. Just knock the socks off.
It's so beautiful. And you were right when you were commenting that, or I don't know if it was you or Mark said it, that, you take these programs and all the years of education, and there might be one or two classes or teachers that really stand out. And I remember studying journalism, and the one teacher who stood out, surprisingly, was a lawyer, and he was teaching Canadian politics.
Mm.
And that could be a real dry, boring subject. But he made it fun and interesting and intriguing. And the teacher really does make a difference. So I just want to say to you that anybody could teach this class, but I think you had the right attitude to bring it to life. You have this welcoming energy about you that creates sacred and safe space for people to be able to delve into the depths of who they really are and bring that out. So good on you, because not everybody can do that. I have two teachers in all my years of schooling and post-secondary that stand out for me, only two. And so it really is an accomplishment. So congratulations.
It's beyond amazing to me. This has been a pinnacle of my career. Not that it's over yet. I have no interest in retiring, none whatsoever. And I not for years, I hope. And it just took me this long to do all those degrees. I'm not interested in quitting yet. And are you kidding? I've got the greatest gig ever. I mean, getting to do this has just been really super. I don't know if I actually even told you what the other two courses are in the disability minor. Did I ever tell you what the other two are? I mean, so I said Why Normal Sucks is the first one. It's the prerequisite. And then the second one is positive psychology. And I actually had somebody challenge me the other day and say, well, what the heck does positive psychology have to do with disability? And I said, well, actually, the reason we wanted to do it is I know that I am an unusual individual with MS who's positive, who has a good attitude. And so many of the things that turn out to be in positive psychology, which, as I've told you in a previous podcast, I didn't even know I was doing mindfulness and things like that. But I am and have been. And so it seemed to me that, of course, if we're going to talk about what culture says is a disability and is therefore abnormal and it sucks, let's figure out how we can be as healthy and positive as possible, given if you have a disability of any kind. And so this is where it seemed like, okay, if students are taking it because they have a disability or they know someone with a disability, it might be helpful to them to look at something other than, and I mean, again, psychology. That's where it tells us where everything's abnormal and horrid but positive psych is obviously its own little spin there. So anyway, that's the second course. And the third course, which I forget what we called it, but it's intercultural relations, I think. But it came out of, and I know I told you the story last time about my going to a powwow and how I was treated with honor and respect. And it's true that in Eastern cultures, so Indigenous cultures we'll call Eastern as well. They're certainly not Western in the way they approach the world, but also countries in the East have a idea that that disability is a spiritual experience, is a something other than the pathologizing we see in the West with disability. We say that it's something wrong with you. This is something to be fixed, something to be whatever, and somehow medicated or whatever it is that we're doing. Where in the East, it's not really like that. And so we're going to look at the two different approaches to disability and how we've gone from spiritual on one hand to pathology on the other, and is there anything in the middle, and can there be, and so, which leads to then the fourth class, which is policy and advocacy, and it's going to teach students a little bit about how to and one of the assignments we're going to have them do is to develop some policy and about something that's interesting to them. And we're also going to have them go to, I'm not sure where yet, but a local organization to meet people and talk to them and do interviews, and to understand that they can be right at the ground level here in the local community. Never mind, we can do it national, but we might as well start small locally and make a difference. So those are the 4 courses for the disability minor, and I'm just thrilled right down to my socks that it's going now. So we're actually about to develop the 3rd and 4th classes this fall, because Kate is doing right now the development of positive psych, and she's about 3/4 finished it. It'll be finished for September, and then we'll be developing the other 2 in the fall so that they're ready for the winter and the following semester. So it's rolling. Yay!
Yay!
I love that. And positive psychology, to me, because when we look at disability, the average person out there sees it as a negative.
Right.
So I love the idea of a positive, because your attitude around your MS and everything is strikingly remarkable to me, because it is a rarity.
Yeah.
So many people with a disability can give you all the reasons why it's bad, wrong, awful, terrible. But you've sat back and said, well, it is what it is. And now what? And you've continued on. And that is a really remarkable message to anybody who's dealing with chronic pain, or, the inability to walk or to see, or whatever it might be. You've challenged all of that and walked through it like, I don't know, a shining star. I just love that.
Well, thank you. I don't know about that, but I will say that I have come to a place. It just is. I could fight it like crazy, or just say, you know what, Laura, Quirk, pull up your socks and get on with it, because it just is. And yeah, I mean, as I've said to you, I have felt very sorry for myself. I've wallowed in self-pity, and I've let myself do that for 24 hours. And that's it. Every time something new comes up, it's like, okay, I need to feel it. I need to feel what I feel. And also, I need to say enough already. And so that's how I handle it. It's not how anyone else necessarily is going to handle it, but that's worked really well for me in a body that's changing all the time. From one time to the next, I don't know what's going to happen. And so, and that was really hard when I was young. It's actually, interestingly, I have less symptoms as I've gotten older, and I'm handling it better when I do. So, but yeah, I thank you for saying that. I certainly wanted the disability minor, and especially Why Normal Sucks, to show students that it's okay. It's okay to be whatever you are, whatever that means.
Well, and as you were talking, I was thinking about a phrase I use with my students all the time, and that is, whatever you resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
So because you only give yourself that short window, okay, I get to be in the mud for this long, and then I'm done. I'm moving beyond. And you just said something really remarkable, that when you were younger and you were kind of resistant to it, you had more symptoms and everything than now, where you're going, it is what it is. Each day is new. I'm just going to do the day the best I can. And all of a sudden your symptoms are fewer. That really speaks volumes about how the mind can trigger responses in the body. So
couldn't agree more. I have believed that as I've gotten healthier emotionally. I've gotten healthier physically. And as I have, I mean, again, like I've got this list of things that one could say I have this and this and this, and therefore I'm sick. But it's, if you ask me, I mean, I have diabetes now. Well, it's pretty well managed, but diabetes, asthma from MS, multiple sclerosis, and yet I've never felt healthier. So it's just, and when I said that to my doctor one day, she's like, "Yeah, okay, Laura, thank you." And I was like, "No, I mean it. I do. I feel healthier than I have ever felt. I don't remember feeling healthier." And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think it has a lot to do with it that I've decided to be healthy. And again, when my neurologists look at my MRI and they'll say, "Well, we can't explain you. You shouldn't be able to walk." Well, but I can. And so I just think I decided. I don't know what else to say. I've just decided to be as healthy as I possibly can. And yes, you're right. I'm not typical of someone with MS. I know that. I mean, I've been on the call list for MS for years to talk to people who are newly diagnosed who are not handling it well. And I'm happy to do that. I don't know how much I plant seeds. Maybe I do. It just is what it is. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, you're an amazing support for somebody going through a challenge. I'm sitting here thinking, and I don't know, this just sort of came up like a puff of smoke.
Okay.
I know, Laura, if you were to walk by somebody smoking, I know that can be dangerous for you.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if you could speak to that. However, I also know that I don't want to stomp on people's rights neither. People have the right to smoke, right? However, I think it is important to educate those who are smoking what it can do and maybe how they can respect you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, at the college, back before COVID, I asked for 5 years for a smoke-free door. And, it took them a really long time to come up with a smoke-free door because I have MS-induced asthma. And cigarette smoke is the worst trigger for me. And so the reason I did was I walked out of the college one night, and I always looked really carefully before I walked out any door because there was no smoke-free doors at the time. And I looked to see if anyone was there. And it was December 22nd, the last day that I was leaving before my holidays. And I walked out, and this person turned around and blew smoke in my face. Like, they just didn't, I don't think they meant to, and I started to cough because of asthma. But what happened was eventually my left vocal cord froze. I got what's known as a glottal gap. And so normally to talk, your vocal cords are doing this. Well, mine was like, and there was no sound. I couldn't make any sound. And I talk for a living. That's how I put it. I talk for a living. And for 5 months, MS attacks last as short as 8 weeks and as long as 6 months. This one was 5 months. I lost my ability to speak for 5 months, at least any way anyone could understand me. And it was painful, very, very painful. And anyway, the thing that frustrates me about smoking was eventually the college said, "Oh yeah, here's your smoke-free door." But I had to walk by smokers to get into the smoke-free door because there would be ringing around the door, and people would be abusive to me. And it's my right to smoke. And I was like, yes, it is. But it's my right to breathe air that doesn't have cigarette smoke. And I can't breathe your air. You can breathe my air. Like, I can't breathe yours. And it actually happened a second time during my time at Conestoga that I lost my speech, and this one lasted 4.5 months. And same problem. Now, I've had another speech problem that isn't related to that. But when I start coughing, I've got asthma, and I cough and I cough and I cough. And, it's dangerous that I'm coughing. And when I lose my speech, when something happens here, it's in your brainstem. And this is the dangerous symptom for MS for me, because it was described to me by my neurologist that you have the brainstem, which is in a really small space. And as it starts the brainstem swells from the damage, he said, it's like there's a balloon in a box and it's blowing up. And there's only so much space before that balloon is going to go kaboom. And I would die. This is not about, so it's not just that I can't speak. It's dangerous. So when people are around me smoking, I'm, constantly, whenever I'm out, I'm vigilant. I'm watching. Is anybody smoking near me? And people are like, I'm outside. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. Believe me, it matters. You think it dissipates for you. It doesn't for me. I guess since wearing masks from COVID, I'm taking less cigarette smoking, which has been good. I speaking of coughing, I do wear a mask for almost everything when I'm out and about because I'm autoimmune compromised, but from medication. But anyway, in answer to your question, Mark, thank you for asking. Like, I do appreciate it. Someone's right to smoke. I do. I hope they understand it's also life and death to me that I can breathe air that doesn't have cigarette smoke.
Wow.
So I'll just, pardon me, dear?
That's an important message.
Yeah.
We can get very self-centered about my rights, but we live together, and everybody's rights they all need to matter. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's great information. I had no understanding of that. I mean, I'm not a smoker, but I know I find it really uncomfortable when I walk out a door and it says no smoking for 9 meters and everybody's standing beside the door smoking. And I find it offensive, but it's not going to kill me. It's, I don't like the smell of it, but that's the extent of it for me. So thank you for providing that information, because that to me is extremely important, that we care for the people around us to the same degree that we care for ourselves.
Agreed. And I completely agree with you, Mark. People have a right to smoke. I'm not saying they don't. It just, you're right. And I mean, how many times I would go out to the college and there'd be students huddled by the door because it was cold or it was raining and they were smoking, just in front. And it's like, you don't understand. You don't understand. In a smoke-free door, oh my God, the abuse I got, for that. Now, because I'm an older woman, sometimes the students would start to be abusive and then they would shut up because they would realize perhaps I could be their professor. But lots of times they didn't stop even there. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing, letting me be here.
Yeah. So grateful. We've only got 2.5 minutes. Final thoughts. What's one thing we want to leave people with today?
You're asking me, or you're asking Mark? Who are you asking?
Asking you first, Laura.
Oh, me first. Final thoughts. Normal sucks. And there's no such thing as normal. And I want to live in a world that we embrace this idea that there is no such thing as normal, and that no matter what you are, it's perfect and wonderful the way you are, and that you're not abnormal if you're quote unquote not normal, and just embrace your difference. It's what we want to do. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
I love that. What about you, Mark?
I think get curious, putting it out to people, just get curious and maybe be more thoughtful.
I love that. I love that. And I'm just going to say, don't resist your life. Your life is yours. It's unique and special to you alone. And because it is, it makes it really, really great for all of us who are willing to be curious, because we get to discover more about you and other lifestyles. Thank you so much for being here today, Laura. Thank you to you, Marg, always wonderful. Our beloved sister Cheryl is off at Unity Village having a spectacular week, I'm sure. And we look forward to her being back next time. So have a wonderful week, everybody. You're watching Out of My Mouth on the New Thought Media Network. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.